Hi guys. Have you ever thought about things that could have been in Piggy, but never made it in? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. 40 scrapped ideas that never made it into the game. Piggy was originally going to have randomized chapter voting, where every new round would show a different set of chapters to choose from, just like how the game mode selection works. But since most of the community didn't really want this feature, it was never added to the game. Piggy was originally going to have a codes tab in the shop. This feature would have let players enter merch DLC codes to unlock exclusive recolored skins, but it never ended up happening since Roblox had issues with merchandise at the time. Back in 2021, Minitoon had a whole bunch of recolored versions of existing skins. These were meant to be obtained through DLC codes, which I mentioned in the previous scrapped idea, but this never ended up happening because again, Roblox didn't really allow this at the time. But some of these recolored skins are quest skins that we have today, though a few of them still never got used. The Carver Skin's pumpkin, which is the skin I'm using right now, was originally supposed to break open after getting a certain amount of kills. But this idea was scrapped for unknown reasons, probably because the mechanic just didn't work out, but instead, every time Carver gets a kill, the fire on his eyes glows stronger, and his pumpkin cracks a little more. Minitoon made a poll on Discord asking the community if infection mode should have a feature where, if an infected gets shot by the gun or a crossbow, they'll be cured and turned back into a survivor. The majority of the community voted yes, but for some reason, this feature was never added. Originally in Book 2 Chapter 5, The Sewers, the Alphys bot was going to have a unique mechanic where he could dive in and out of the sewer water. Here are the animations that were going to be used for that feature. Gallery was originally going to have two escape exits, one being the front door and the other being the back garage, but this idea was scrapped to prevent the map from being too fast and easy to complete. The Paris skin was originally planned to be the bot of the Distorted Memory chapter, but the Memory skin ended up being chosen instead since her name and design fit the chapter's theme better. The plant ending was originally supposed to be very different. Minitoon mentioned that it would have ended with the characters walking into a sunset and using a completely different song for the ending cutscene, but the song ended up being deleted by Roblox, so the ending ended up being changed. Book 2 Chapter 10, The Temple, was originally supposed to be built by Minitoon himself, but later on, he decided to let IKEA's take over the build instead. Minitoon did start working on the map a bit before that though. Here's part of the map he built. The Griffin skin was originally supposed to have animations made by Dexter Plays, but they were never added because the animations made them too big to fit through certain doorways. Here's what those animations looked like. The Katie skin's mask was originally going to cover her entire nose, but Minitoon ended up moving it down a bit since he thought it looked too derpy. Mousy was originally going to be a skin that could crawl and go through vents, but her speed would have been slower than other skins. However, this idea was scrapped since Minitoon wanted the skin to stay balanced. Mousy was also supposed to be an uninfected NPC in the mall chapter. She was probably just going to be a helper NPC, but instead, she ended up being infected and patrolling the vents. Piggy actually had an unused book selection menu, where players could choose between Book 1 and Book 2. The Shardantis skin was originally going to have an extra custom emote, chomping sounds in his jump scare, and gems on his shoes. The emote, which would have been done by using the /E Peter command and made him do the Family Guy death pose, never made it into the game because they thought players might use it to hide and sneak attack. The chomping sounds that were going to be in his jump scare never got added for being too brutal, and the gems on his shoes weren't added to reduce lag, but they can still be seen in his shop icon. Piggy was actually planned to have a collaboration with another Roblox game called Bear, but for some reason it never ended up happening. When the Kamosi skin was first leaked, he actually looked a little different from how he does now. He had one ear half missing, and didn't have spikes coming out of his chest. The Mari skin was originally supposed to be the alternate skin for Season 3, and it was going to be a Nutcracker version of Mari. But Minitoon ended up replacing Mari with the Zizzy Soldier skin, since he said Mari's alternate looked too scary in the wrong way. There was originally going to be a spider skin in the 2020 Spooky Hunt update, but it never made it into the game because its animations weren't finished in time. Here's what the skin would have looked like. Minitoon once had an idea for a character-focused chapter set in a safe place, featuring tower defense style gameplay. The player would build defenses and battle through waves of enemies that got harder as each wave went on. The Norse skin we have today wasn't the original plan. Players were originally supposed to get the Error Norse skin after completing Pig 64 Part 2, but it was scrapped because developers wanted the Norse skin to be more unique. They likely didn't want players complaining about the skin. Since Pig 64 was difficult for some people to complete, they didn't want players thinking the Error Norse skin wouldn't be worth it. The Billy skin was originally going to be the bot for the plant chapter, but he ended up being replaced by Badgie. Later, he was supposed to be the bot for the refinery chapter too, but that never happened either. He was planned to have 3 themes, but 2 of them were scrapped. He also originally had green and yellow pupils, different designs, and even different animations, which looked like this. Before the Craxacord skin was released, he was going to have only 2 pupils, less detail, and a darker shade of blue compared to the version we have now. Piggy has a bunch of unused thumbnails, like this one, which was going to be used for Season 8. It was never added because it was considered too dark for younger audiences, and spoiled the Jawbreaker skin. These thumbnails were scrapped due to community backlash, and these thumbnails were scrapped for unknown reasons. There were also some poses and renders for skins that were going to be used for thumbnails, but were never used. And here's a pose of Bunny doing a shocked expression for a Delirium thumbnail which was never used. Piggy was originally going to have a skin notification feature, which would notify players whenever they unlocked the new skin, like Polly, but this feature was never added to the game. There was originally going to be a second bot for the lab chapter, Peyton. Minitoon decided not to add him because he felt like it would make the chapter too difficult to complete. However, a Peyton NPC is still outside the map. There was originally going to be another section in the lab chapter built by Minitoon himself, but he ended up scrapping it before release. Here's what part of that unfinished area looked like. Back in 2020, Minitoon mentioned that he planned to add translations to Piggy so players from around the world could play in their own language. However, despite promising that it would happen, the feature was never added into the game. Some Piggy skins were originally planned to get these redesigned looks. Bunny's ears were going to be the same length, Teacher's dress was going to be a different color, and Doggy's shirt was going to be orange. Polly was also supposed to get a redesign, but none of these changes ended up happening. Ellie, Foxy, and Mousy had alternate design options too, but those versions lost in a community poll. There were a few scrapped areas planned for the Delirium chapter. In the Bell residence, there was going to be another staircase, and there was going to be an attic. There was also a scrapped version of the playground, a scrapped design for the play center, and even an unfinished cafeteria inside the medical school. The apparitions in the Delirium chapter were originally going to have completely white eyes, without the pupils. Back in July, Piggy was supposed to participate in the Hatch event. However, Piggy ended up leaving after Roblox allowed a developer who made inappropriate games to be part of the event. Minitoon didn't want any association with that. Piggy wasn't the only game that withdrew. Other games like Doors and Pressure also left for the same reason. Minitoon once mentioned that the Frosty skin would return every year as a yearly tradition for Piggy. However, in 2023, he didn't re-add the Winter Holiday chapter because he forgot to. And in 2024, he replaced it entirely with the Distorted Holiday chapter. The Officer Doggy skin had a scrapped idle animation that was never added. It was similar to the one he has now, except his head would turn left and right. It's unknown why the animation wasn't used though. In the icon for the Outpost chapter, there are 2 trash cans next to the orange key door. However, in the actual map, they aren't there. The Fergus skin was originally going to have a reloading animation play after he shot a player in his jump scare, but this feature was most likely scrapped because it would have made the jump scare too long. But if you type /E reload, he'll actually perform the reloading animation as an emote. Another scrapped detail about Fergus is that he was originally going to be named Hayden. Similar to Alphys' scrapped bot mechanics, the Dakota bot was originally planned to be able to dive in and out of water in the port map. The Craxacord skin was originally going to have color-changing abilities, but that feature never ended up happening. Developers also considered adding the color-changing effect to his daily quest skin later on, but it still never made it into the game. There's a scrapped version of the ending cutscene in the Distorted Holiday chapter, where Sam would be slightly visible in the background burning as the other characters, Z, Zuzi, and Georgie walked up to the player.